So here I am, and what I'm going to start with is, we're going to start with, instead of me giving you a full model of what a PBL classroom looks like, I'll talk to you more about what the role of teachers is in schools where there is PBL. Firstly, can you all raise your hands if you're teachers? Teachers, raise your hands. Okay, so yeah, good. Perfect crowd. So we are going to be talking about, in this world of tomorrow, what is your role? Because we all are teachers coming from a good place. We know that we have to educate our children, but we're going to take a moment to see how we're going to take it to the next step. And PBL is actually not a world of tomorrow, because I shudder to think where we'll go there with education. It's the school of today. This is what we need to be doing right now in order to make that child of tomorrow who's ready to succeed in a situation, in a world where, like, you know, if you heard in the inauguration speech, they said, we don't even know the professions that will exist in 2035, 2050. Yet, here we are educating those children. So what I want to start with is, I want you all to take 2 seconds and think about something that you're really good at. Please take 2 minutes to think about something that you're really good at.
As a teacher?
As a human being. As a teacher, as a human, whatever. Something, you could be very good at teaching as a human being. So, whatever. Just take 2 minutes, and I'm just going to, just raise your hand if you want to answer what you are really good at. G.
I'm good at communication skills.
You're good at communication skills. Okay. Can you tell me how you got good at it?
Should I stand up or keep sitting?
It's up to you, whatever you're comfortable with.
Thank you very much. My name is Shoaib Qureshi, and the basic thing I've gone through is I did my degree from University of West of Scotland, United Kingdom.
Did they teach you how to communicate?
It is actually the part of our curriculum. Like in MBA, we actually practice 34 courses, and 8 of those courses are regarding the communication skills.
Okay. So then you felt like going to school really helped you with communication.
It's like schools leads to colleges and colleges to universities.
Yes.
So yes, the school did play a vital role in developing my communication skills in one form. Like we used to do lots of projects and presentations and class participation.
So you actually got to stand up and practice your skills. So practice made you perfect.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Someone else? G.
I'm good at problem solving with the students.
Okay.
In my classroom, I try my best to create such an environment that children are comfortable to talk to me regarding any of their problems.
So let's go to problem solving. How did you get good at problem solving?
I have been friendly with my kids, and we have our.
Were you always a problem solver at home?
Yes, I do.
Okay, how? Why are you the problem solver at home?
Since I'm a mother and I have to see my kids, so all the problems I have a friendly attitude with them as well. So they can come up with any of their problems or any of the mistakes done by them. They're not afraid of it, and they can share it easily.
Okay.
Yeah, I can understand.
So you are also a product of, again, repetition, doing the same thing over and over again. So you have now become really good at problem solving. Okay. Anyone else? Something personal, a little bit more personal? Are you guys raising your hands in the back? Are you telling me? No? Okay. Is anybody telling me? Is anybody good at cooking? You are? Okay. How did you get good at cooking?
I think the way, again I will say again through the practice, because I love to eat and I love to make different dishes.
So when you want to make different dishes, what do you do?
Obviously I just go to this research and I research on the net and all that stuff, and if somebody else, if I go somewhere in somebody's house and I ask them what are the recipes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So actually my interest actually makes me the perfect with cooking. So this is what I do.
So thank you. Thank you very much for those of you who shared with us. The common things here is that us teachers, our role is diminishing. As adults, you all realize we don't need a teacher to teach us how to cook. We don't need a teacher to teach us how to communicate. We don't need a teacher to teach us how to problem solve. We have to be engaged in real world problems. Those problems or those interests rather also help us investigate, research, ask a subject matter expert revert to books at times because we have to continually update ourselves. But notice that there is no teacher here. It is all led from here because your interest is guiding you. That is what we have to do with students in the 21st century. We know that in the 21st century there are some skills that are absolutely necessary. And you can say one system gives them more, IB is doing this, and Cambridge board is doing this, and Excel is doing that. It's all there, but at the core of it, the skills have to be taught regardless. To say that A levels and O levels are very didactic is not true. It's our teaching methodology that is like that. And if you take best practices from all over the world, you can put it in any methodology, whether it's PBL, IB, Cambridge, or any of the boards. So we have to rethink our role as teachers. So here's something. I used to think I was completely responsible for my students' learning, right? That's how we feel. अगर मैं नहीं पढ़ाऊंगी तो और कौन पढ़ाएगा? I have to do this, I have to do that. Well, now I say, I think that I am responsible for guiding them while they take ownership of their own learning. Now, this is easier said than done because then when we get to the Q&A section, I know that you guys are going to ask me, but what about core skills? What about writing? What about math problems? What about numeracy and all those things? And I have to say, and this is my favorite quote from PBL, PBL is not the dessert, it is the main course. You can teach all of those things, any subject content that you have, if you step back and you do this. What I'm going to further tell you is going to make you work harder. As the role of a teacher changes, so does the scope of our work. And the scope of our work is growing. We have to plan. Again, there's a misconception that PBL or project-based learning is totally student emergent. It's an emergent curriculum. It's not. We do give children voice and choice. You always have to give a child voice and choice. But it is a collaborative, planned project made with the science teacher, math teacher, English teacher, sports teacher, art teacher, whoever. And they've got to meet and they've got to hash it out like they're doing, solving a real world problem, talk about every back end thing so that they have left no stone unturned, and that's how you make a project. So yes, it is more work for you. Sorry, so some reading when you have some time, you can pick this up and read it, but I'm not going to go into that. Again, at the heart of PBL is rigor. You can, oh look, there's a cat. Okay. So if this was, I'll just tell you, if this was my real classroom right now, I would use that as an entry event. Okay? In project-based learning, an entry event is something that hooks your audience, hooks your students. They want to learn more about that. They want to understand that. So the real world right in front of them is a cat. If I had planned this properly, I would have planned for this cat to be here. And I would have released it in the middle of you and asked you all, how am I going to now catch this cat? If I'm a smart teacher, I would have put in the speed at which the cat runs at, the cat's anatomy, the size of this room, how do you take out square footage, all kinds of things that you can put in just by using an authentic problem. You can actually build a project around it which is rigorous. Again, this is something, don't think a project is a theme, and we'll talk a little bit about what a theme is and what a project is, but project-based learning is a very rigorous work for students and for teachers. Okay? Rigor is the pursuit of inquiry. Your students need to be inquirers. It is now part of the Beacon House school system learner profile. And saying it is easy. All these words, by the way, guys, are very easy to fluff around with. It's very easy to say, oh, we are on a journey of learning. This is very I like to do this, and I like to make sure that my children are inquisitive and are risk takers but what are you doing to ensure that they are all those things? How can you, when if in a classroom you've planned your lesson really well and there's that one annoying kid who just keeps raising his hand saying, but teacher, but miss, मुझे ये समझ नहीं आ रही, but miss, and you're like, देखो, मुझे पढ़ाने दो. But what you're doing there is because you're so fixated on your 40-minute lesson plan that you don't have time to listen to that kid. And right there, slowly but surely, you are killing his curiosity and his inquisitiveness, and you're setting an example for the rest of the class that don't bug me when I'm talking. Because I'm going to talk, and you guys are going to listen. And we have to shift our focus from that. So there are 7 survival skills for the 21st century. Again, a question that was asked today by the audience. I don't know how many of you were there, but what are the 3 core skills and what are the 3 core, what did they say? Values? Values that they need to have, students need to have in the 21st century. Well, PBL tells you that there are 4, which is, we call them the 4 C's. They are communication, creativity, collaboration, and thank you. And they are at the core of all these things, right? But here we have a few more. Can you see this? Is it pixelated? Okay. Well, they add assessing and analyzing information, which is part of critical thinking. Curiosity and imagination, which I said is part of creativity. But they've also added initiative and entrepreneurship. And again, this is very important part of the PBL model, and I'm not going into the PBL model because I'm only assuming that if you are here sitting in my session, you have done some research on PBL, and if you haven't, don't worry, the model is available online. You can go and take a look at it. It's 8 different steps that you need to take to make a PBL model, but they're all there. Different Buck Institute of Education has a different model, Stanford has a different model, but at the end of the day, they all are the same, okay? And we'll go into those also. Agility and adaptability. And while I'm talking and I'm using all these words, I want you all to take a second to filter in your head how you do this. How do you make sure that there is assessing and analyzing information built into your curriculum, whether you're a kindergarten teacher or whether you're a 12th grade teacher? How do you make sure that there is initiative and entrepreneurship in your projects? Okay, so keep thinking about those things. So what is PBL? It is a set of learning experiences and tasks that guide students in inquiry, answering a central question, solving a problem, or meeting a challenge. They have got to do that. So अगर आप एक chapter पढ़ा रहे हैं on the war of independence, for those of you who are perhaps history teachers or social sciences for the younger ones, if you are teaching them about that, the way I taught it was that I posted a letter to my students, and the letter was dated sometime in I would say about November of 1947, and I told them that somebody found this letter and they've sent it to me, but listen, it's a letter from a person back in 1947. It was authentic. It was a piece of letter that we had rubbed in the dirt, we had put stamps on it, we had sent it into the class. They were very excited that somebody had unearthed this letter from 1947. The letter was full of what I wanted the students to research. So it was a cousin asking his cousin, listen, I live in India and I want to move to Pakistan. What is the situation there? I have these many children, my wife doesn't work, and I want to move to Pakistan. So we told our students, what do we do? And they all broke up into groups. First we developed a question. How can we as historians look back and what advice would we give this person now? In doing so, the students went down to the point where they even looked at what train system was available in 1947, what the schedules of those trains were, what the currency of that time was. They got subject matter experts जिनके नाना और दादा दादी जो उस ज़माने में अब तो there are very few survivors who would be old enough to actually young enough to come and actually talk to children, but there were people who were growing up during that time. They came in, they spoke to children, they talked about अच्छा वो 4 बेटियां लेकर आ रहे हैं, what was there for girls at that time, what kind of communities were set up, what kind of help, and the kind of information that these children got, and then at the end they wrote a letter back to their cousin. But some kids, and I've done this several times, sometimes they also figured we don't need to write a letter back. There was cable, we could send a message through other mediums, and some went into how to message at that time. But they all learned, let me assure you, about the independence war without once opening a textbook. And those students of mine are now perhaps in 8th grade, and we did this with them when they were in 2nd grade, and they have not forgotten. They remember every single thing because it was not forced by me. It was a problem that they were solving. They were helping a gentleman, and all the research that they were doing was their own research. Whilst doing it as a teacher, I knew, and my team knew, what are some of the scaffolding tasks that I need to give them. If they are going to be asked to write a letter, it was there because part of their objectives for that month was letter writing in English. So I had to make sure that I also taught them how to write a letter without saying address right side pe likho, then do this on the left side, make sure ke indentation is tarah hai, make sure. No, we didn't have to do that. When we got into letter writing, they started letter writing, and I said, listen, let's look at how letters are written, because we want to make sure, we don't want to be disrespectful to this gentleman. We want to write a letter properly. Let's look at forms of formal and informal writing, and then you decide whether you guys want to send him a formal letter or informal letter. So you have to guide the children. I had to guide them to tell them what was informal and what was formal, right? But then they did the research and said, is this formal, is this informal, which one, and how do we do this? But they learned both forms of writing. And that was something otherwise would have made for a very boring classroom. But again, those kids have not ever forgotten to write a letter. Moving forward, we built in assessment into our project. At every step, they were assessed on their skills, whether it was, like we said, communication skills, because whenever they did research, they would come up and they would share it with the class, because of time limitations, not everyone can do all the research. So one team was doing what was security like, one team was doing what was housing like, what was education like, all the areas that we had already planned that they needed to know for that time. And then every time they jigsawed with each other, that's what is a jigsaw activity. They would come in, one team would bring their information and share it with the rest of the class, so that the rest of the class didn't have to do that research, they did notes. Now when they were doing notes, again we had to teach them note-taking skills. So we did that in a separate class. We did a separate class where we just told them how to take notes. They designed stuff, they drew what they thought would look, so they had art integration, they had IT integration, all of those things. Okay, so it is not a string of activities that is tied together and made into a project. So please be very, very careful of that. That's not what it is. It is not a theme. It's not let's all do under the water because we're going to see animals. It is not that. And the classroom is not suddenly going to be turned into, by the teacher, into an aquarium. If the students wish to do it, it will be done, but if it's part of the project. So it's not a theme. Your role as a teacher, this is what I was discussing with you. It is very important. If you believe in this, then you must believe in the constructivist philosophy. And again, there's plenty of reading out there. You guys just need to go in there and take a look at it. But I'll tell you in layman's term what that means. That means that you learn through your experiences. And when we were talking about our own skills, when I think of something that I learned, and like that's why I asked you about cooking, I learned how to cook only when I was thrown into a situation where I had to cook. And I learned from my experiences. Nobody taught me, but I learned because I had to, and I actually then wanted to because I found interest in it. I looked at, and my mother was a subject matter expert who I called every time, and so you guys need to have subject matter experts in your classrooms. Whenever I thought I needed something, a textbook or something, I opened a recipe book. Whenever I needed to fail, I cooked something and it was a disaster, I learned from it, I cooked again and I cooked again and I cooked again. I asked one of my students once why they love video games so much as opposed to classroom time. And they said, because miss, we can die 10 times and I have another turn. I'm never out. I just reboot and I get a turn again. Some children were playing this game Angry Birds about a couple of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and I said to one of them, why are you obsessed with this game? He said, because I've learned to beat the system. Every time I die and my lives end, or I don't know which game, yeah, I think it was Angry Birds. He said, I have a way that I can switch the time in a 24-hour clock and get my lives back, and then I can restart again. So I never fail. As opposed to us telling a child, ye galat kiya hai, you got 2 out of 10, sorry, I'm going to mark you and I'm going to send an assessment home that shows that you got 2 out of 10. Instead, children want to improve. They want to improve like I wanted to improve at cooking. So once they got 2 out of 10, we gave them the assessment again and again and again till that child, as long as he went from 2 to 6 or 2 to 4, that's showing improvement within that own child, his trajectory. He doesn't need to get 10 out of 10 so that he can satisfy you or his parents. He needs to know that he is continually learning. And that's what we do by building an assessment that constantly checks the child's own trajectory, not at what the entire class level is at. Okay, sorry, I was going to go into, yes. So, create a positive learning culture. The way you speak to the children, the way your classrooms are set up. Children need to be excited to come to school. Incorporate your standards. This is very important. People miss out on this. PBL does not mean that your content standards are not there. You have to build your projects around those content standards. So you take those out and you take 2 or 3 teachers and you decide which ones are going to be. You develop, model and nurture curiosity. You're the manager of the inquiry process. Every time I would come to a roadblock with children, I would immediately stop and say to them, let's together find out what this is. Even though I knew the answer, I had to bite my tongue and not give them the answer, because you have to say, why don't we all find out? Because I don't know. Let's find out. And you think if this is just with little children, it's not. It's with older kids as well, who are in 11th grade, 12th grade. If they ask you a question and you know the answer, don't try to tell it back to them because you're the teacher and you want to sound smart. Instead, model a behavior and say, you know what? I'm not quite sure about this information, or this information could have changed. Why don't we research it? Here are some sites. Why don't we go to XYZ site, and whatever you find, just make sure that you cite your work. Let's find out what it is. They're right there. You've told them how to do citations, academic honesty, and you have told them to go research and continue with their curiosity. Be flexible. Again, don't worry about this is my lesson plan and I must stick to it. In the 21st century, inshallah, there will be no timetables. There will be no silo teaching, where now it's math. Stop what you're doing, let's switch into Urdu. Stop what you're doing, now you've got to go do English. Stop what you're doing, games ka period. Games se thake hue hai, it doesn't matter, math karo. You know, we have to stop that. We have to make sure that in the math lesson, maybe they are going outside and they're sprinting. We've got to break those boundaries. Talk to your headmistresses, talk to your principals, talk to your whoever is in your chain of command at schools to see how you can be going beyond that boundary. Okay? And if you have a good idea, you can manage. I promise you, your heads are not going to come down on you. They will listen to you. As long as you are giving them a solid way that is showing that learning is happening. They are not going to stop you. Model of willingness to be a learner and assessor of learning. Like I said, assessments are very important. Role of the students, this is what you have to teach the students. They have to be collaborators. None of this is my work and I'm not going to share it with anybody. You've got to share it with each other. Self-managers, you know, this is where the dog ate my homework. Well, if the dog ate your homework, there are some logical consequences that you will have to face. And so make sure that timelines, deadlines, you should be firm on those things. And the way you can be firm on those things is by using a calendar for the entire week or month where you have planned and you've said this is the due date for this assignment. As long as you're giving clear instructions, children are looking at this, they know that they have to get where they need to get. To start this process of self-managing. Conductors of research, we've talked about that, decision makers. Again, like I was saying right in the beginning, give them voice and choice. Tell them, it's your choice. You tell me what to do. Here are 3 scenarios, pick one. So suddenly they are the masters of their own learning. They're leading the way. Problem solvers, goes without saying. Peer and self-evaluators, this is very important, guys. Always, please build in peer assessment into your lessons. When you do peer assessments, you as a teacher have to be very sure that the rubrics are carefully defined to the students. They're up in your room, they say this is what gets you an A, this is what gets you a B, this kind of level of work gets you a C, and this is the D. Start with prepare assessments, they'll start doing it to each other. Very soon they'll know the quality of the work that they are producing, whether it's up to grade or not. Okay, innovators, this again comes as part of PBL, where they will do some prototyping, they will use their hands, so you will see that they are innovative. Assessment always, this is one of the Stephen Covey things as well, keeping the end in mind. It's one of the skills. So you must, the teachers also must know what am I doing this for at the end, what do I want to achieve out of this. So keep the end in mind, work backwards, plan backwards. Okay? And these are just some essential questions, we're not going to go through those. What I am going to do is ask you, like I said, please put the rubrics up. All these things need to be available to your students, and make a routine rhythm with it that they do finish and write in the reflective journals. And again, what are reflective journals? Nothing, it's like a daily diary. Today I learned this. They'll start off with doing silly things where they'll just write, I like art, I like math today. But you have to guide them through, here's how you reflect. Okay, if you like art, tell me why you like art. Tell me what is the piece of work that made you proud? What is the piece of work that you can improve? What is the piece of work you'd like to go back and show to your parents? And very soon you'll see that their reflections get deeper as well. Small and more group evaluations. Okay, so I'm going to stop here because what I'd like to do is I just did what I told you guys not to do, which is I talked at you for the last 27 minutes. Okay, so that's a long time. So what I'm going to do is, there's somebody here, she is my colleague. Her and I worked together for the last 7 years, and she's somebody very capable. She is now the deputy head of TNS, and so I asked her to come in, Ms. Kaval Malik, and ask me all the questions that she couldn't ask when I was her head about PBL. So she's going to come in and ask as a practitioner's point of view, from a teacher's point of view, some of the questions that you may have, and if we still haven't answered all your questions, we're going to open this up to a Q&A session. How does that sound?
Great.
Great? Okay, perfect. Ms. Kaval, please come up on stage. Okay, now you take a seat. Okay,
How are you? But that's not a very fine thank you. Get some excitement.
I bored them, yes.
PBL is all about excitement. It's all about getting your students excited. So if you are not excited yourself, you won't be able to get your students excited. So when I started working with Ms. Aisha and she started training us on PBL, the first session went, we did not understand anything because a lot of these things look very easy to understand, but when you try implementing them within your routine and the timetable that you talked about, Ms. Aisha, they become very, very tricky. So I kept on thinking, and we ran a lot of successful projects under Ms. Aisha's guidance. And the first question, Ms. Aisha, that I would like to ask you is probably a very simple one, but would be helpful for the audience. You talked about the emergent curriculum and the child-led and the teachers planning these projects. But how exactly are these projects planned? Where is the curriculum? How do we plan these projects?
So the good thing is that what I say is that you have time in the summer. Summer is a time instead of coming back and concentrating on your boards. God, that's the bane of my existence. I told people, forget the boards. the boards will fill themselves. The boards will fill themselves with a lot of student work. Just make sure that they're available to the students, but use your energies to do something more constructive, and that is build your projects. So look at your, like I said, open the curriculum in front of you. Say in this term, मुझे ये पढ़ाना है, whichever teacher you are, if you're a subject teacher, and then grab 2 or 3 of your co-workers, sit down together and say, I've got to build a project based around these. How can you come in? What do you have to teach? What do you have to teach? And then build a project together. But use your curriculum as your guide. And जो हम कहते हैं कि it's child-led, the children think it's led by them. Okay, so when you go, and inshallah we'll do more training on PBL, you yourself already have a list of this is what the children need to know. But in class, when you go in there, you ask the students, in order to answer this question, what all do you need to know? So I go back to that 1947 wala jo maine aapko diya tha. Uske andar you just ask the children, what do you think you need to know in order to answer this question? And they will come up with all those things. And if they're missing out on something, then you quietly nudge them and you say, don't you think we need to know this as well? So it's rather a suggestion rather than, nahin, you forgot this, you need to know this also. So when you do that, that's their voice and choice.
So that makes sense. So then that way you can link it to their prior knowledge also, you understand what they already know, and then link it to what they need to know.
Yeah.
And after, when they achieve their targets, you can use that as a checklist.
As a checklist of what we have learned. So what I used to know, what I know now, what I want to know, and what I have learned through all of what I know now. So it's a 3-way thing, and if you have this set up in your classroom, it's perfect to show parents who are always worried about copies nahi bhari nahi. So if the children can articulate what they have learned, what they used to know, and what they know now, that for you is a perfect parent meeting subject or a visual to show them in class.
So that takes me to my next question, which I'm sure most of the teachers would agree with, when we talk about project-based learning. How does project-based learning prepare students for exams or assessments? Because it all seems like fun and games, activity-based. What about assessments?
So like I said, you have to plan your assessments as well. And you have to scaffold the child's learning. Now scaffold is a word that is used in education, but it's people somehow, I don't know if they know the meaning of the word or if it's just a buzzword in the 21st century. But scaffolding means that you build them up to a level where they can perform at the level that you want them to. So if you are training your kids to sit for an IGCSE exam, which you know is 2.5 hours, which requires them to take some MCQs and then write some essays, you better make sure that you give those children those skills. That's it. You have to, there's no way does it say that PBL or any of these teaching methodologies don't have exams or they don't have tests. You have to assess their knowledge and you have to give them time tests. They do have to eventually get into college. They will sit for the SATs, half of them. And so yes, you have to build that in. So make sure that your teaching is about 70-30. 30% where you are doing these very relevant, these are also 21st century skills. You have to finish your work in a certain time. So they have to be time tests. So build that in. So there is no such thing as no exams or no homework. We'll get to Q&A and just write your question down and we'll just get to it.
Okay, so again, you did, actually what you're doing is you're leading to my next question, to your answer. Yes, in the early and the primary, we talk about assessments. The middle years, and when we talk about O levels, again, career readiness, college readiness becomes very important. How would PBL help us?
And again, when I was talking to you guys about PBL, I was talking about your role as teachers needs to evolve. In order to be a PBL teacher, you have to be a 21st century human being yourself. And you have to look at other ways of teaching besides the traditional ones you know. And a part of that is knowing your students' learning styles. Okay? And when you know your students' learning styles, you learn whether they are, whether they learn just through visuals or whether they learn through auditory, are they kinesthetic, what kind of learners are they? And then you build onto that and you do career aptitude readiness. We have Beacon House as a lovely career counseling. So you add all of that in. Again, when I say that PBL is the main course, I mean it's the main course. It is not the dessert, it is not the appetizer. It goes hand in hand with pretty much all you're doing in your lives right now as teachers. You just have to tweak your teaching methodology, that's all. So when these students come into being, you will start through your observations are noticing that one child is better at science than he is at math or art, or one child is better at art than he is at sports and English. And that's the way that's going to lead the way for his career. And that's where he's going to go. Yes, they may not fit into the preconceived notions of our molds that we want to put them in, but they will. They will.
Okay, that explains it. So in the beginning, when you were working with them, you asked them questions about their skills. Someone from the audience said they learned the communication skills through college.
Yeah.
So do you think that is not something that PBL emphasizes on in terms of their real life skills, the 4 C's that we talked about?
Absolutely.
Can you give us an example of how PBL enhances or helps enhance communication skills in class?
So you make sure that again, the children at the end of every project have to present their project, and part of one of the last steps of the PBL model is an authentic audience. So you have to make sure that the audience is either the parent body or another classroom, but it has to be a situation where they stand up and they present. So, and before the project, you do a lot of practice sessions with them. Maybe presenting at your assemblies, maybe presenting just to another classroom. So communication is again written and spoken and body language. Remember that communication is not only the words that are coming out of our mouths. So we have to make sure, A, that all 3 of those are addressed, and then all 3 of them must have rubrics that the children know about. So remember, Kaval, when we do our presentation, we have a rubric which tells children that you will score this and this and this depending on your body language. Are you making eye contact? Are you nervous? Are you hands? And they start off with a lot of this, and by the end of the year, if you chart their progress, you will see that they're getting better and better because they know exactly what to aspire towards.
So do you think that the trick here is that the students should know what they're going to learn about since day one?
Yes.
So they need to know what the rubrics are, they need to know what the end, begin with the end in mind, they need to know what the end product is so that they can work their way through with you.
Absolutely. Isn't that what us adults want?
Yes.
As professionals, don't you want to know where am I going with this? Am I going to stay a teacher forever? Am I going to be the next headmistress? Where am I going vertically? What am I learning more? What are my professional development goals? Just the same way, students need to know where they're going with all this information, what we are expecting of them, and what their next steps are, so we can help them with those next steps.
Okay, but we're still bound with the timetable. I'm sure all the teachers will agree. So do you think PBL takes too much time away teaching students these 21st century skills, and then we maybe are not able to keep the balance towards the traditional subject matter like हमारे timetables होते हैं, हमारे spellings होते हैं, how do we tie that?
Not at all. Again, talk to your heads. In the summer, plan your timetable 70-30. 30% of the time you should be doing all those things, but 70% of the time your project should be so tightly planned that they are so rigorous that nothing gets missed. And if there is, because you can't stuff content in. So the content that is not in the project has to be taught in isolation. But again, if you can just reuse these rules and make them a little bit more research-based, child-led, they will also be fun. Again, that doesn't mean कि हम दो ends of a totem pole पे हो जाएंगे. On one end, we are doing PBL, and then on the other end, saying, okay, but the fun is over. Now open your books and learn those timetables. And believe me, I know timetables have to be learned. I know that they have to be learned. But we can do it in a way where it's not a punishment for children, because at the end of the day, they will not forget acquiring the knowledge. They will not retain the knowledge if it's done as a punishment to them.
And then maybe the implementation of that knowledge. How would they implement that knowledge in real life situations? If you don't help them, how to?
You know, she's asking me these questions, but I've seen her run such fantastic projects. that she knows all of these things. She so Kaval ran a beautiful project once about weather. Yeah, you had to do weather with students, and she transformed her classroom into a weather station where children came every morning, and one child would open. There was a role play area where he would open the curtains, and through that you taught provinces, and you taught, I mean, all kinds of things, and those are part of your curriculum targets.
There was a kindergarten class. The students were 4 to 5.
Yeah.
And the idea started when one of our students, we were having a discussion, and one student just stood up and asked, Miss, can we make rain?
Yeah.
And that really clicked with everyone. And through the process of how to make rain, we covered the water cycle, we covered the vocabulary in English, and the news report that they used to do every morning. I said, you remember it used to be in Urdu and English. So you do not isolate PBL or project-based learning to just English, because the rest of the subjects are taught in English. You bring in Urdu.
We've done Islamiyat, we've done the love of animals and how to respect animals through Islamiyat as well. And right now the current situation, again, authentic real life problems, the smog in Lahore and Islamabad is a perfect entry event for children to start thinking about climate and seasons and weather and things like that. So did I answer your question with something? I feel like I didn't answer the last question.
Yes, the last question is not from the perspective of a teacher or an educator. I think because when as teachers we practice PBL, we become problem solvers also. So I just want to ask a personal question, that as a PBL practitioner, is there anything in real life where you took a risk to solve a problem, and what was that? What did you feel, and what happened?
So, okay, you put me on the spot. So something, I took a risk, and listen, I think that a lot of things that we did at TNS were risky, because parents were they had to be educated in a massive way. And we did risk because we were scared that we weren't going to be able to provide them with the content knowledge that we needed to. But I tell you, when we started building those projects, and it did take the blood and sweat of a lot of teachers who sat together and planned this, when those students did the project presentations at the end, and I still have videos of them that I go back and I watch, that right there pays it all off. Guys, we have a job that gives you almost instant gratification, okay? It is right there in front of your face. You don't have to wait for a year to go by to feel that gratification from the students. And once a child finishes that project, the gratification that you all will feel, I tell you, you've never felt like that as a teacher before. So yes, there are risks that you take, but they have to be calculated, and they have to be, eventually you've got to show something for them. And I feel like a lot of the things that we did, we planned them, but like in life, there are no sureties, but maybe.
Just like that, you couldn't make it.
Just like he couldn't make it.
And
So,
maybe Ms. Aisha, when we talk about that was a real life problem.
That
you
was.
couldn't make it, and then you had to intervene with your
That
SOT.
was, yes.
I can now conveniently say that Karan Johar couldn't make it, and then I am having a conversation with Ms. Aisha.
yes, exactly. She didn't, otherwise it was going to be Karan Johar in that case. Now, shall we open it up to questions, guys? I know that some of you had questions. So, are there any questions? Okay. So, don't you think that we should not have some time and questions or assessment for the class, as each individual is different? Yes, each individual is different, but each learning outcome is the same. So they might not learn at the same pace as the other student, but the outcome has to be the same at the end of the day. It's up to you to see how you bring that child up to that position there. Why don't you do 3 and I do 3? It's how you bring that child up to that assessment, right? Level. I agree with project-based learning, but guide me, how can we implement it over A level classes where we are bound by syllabus, time and results? Okay, so syllabus is what the content I was talking to you about. There is syllabus, there is syllabus everywhere. Which school runs without syllabus? I mean, it's everywhere. There's syllabus everywhere. So you have to take that syllabus, and I know with O and A levels, because it is taught in a very traditional way in Pakistan. you feel that that's the only way to teach it because perhaps that's the only way you've learned yourself as well. But if you even look at TeacherTube and go into other resources and look at videos of schools all over the world doing O and A levels, they are not teaching the way we are teaching here. Because we have fallen into a pattern of now we're going to do past papers and then we're going to do this. But that learning can still be fun if you just make it start by adding a little bit of PBL. You don't have to go in and do hundreds of. Can you go to my other presentation or मुझे जब clicker एक second देंगे मैं आप इनको एक great एक चीज़ बताती हूँ. Okay. इसको जरा ऊपर तक बड़ा करवाइए करके. If I am a math O-level teacher and have to teach class topic, vectors or transformation, how can PBL help me with limited time? Well, you should, if you're doing vectors and transformation, talk to your English teacher, talk to you, whoever that group of teachers are for O-levels and ask them what projects they're doing and if there is any place for you to add your math syllabus to them. It can be done. So you just have to sit down and can't do it at the last minute and say, how do I add this? You have to think what is the real life application of vectors and transformation. You work with that and work your way backwards and then build it into a real life situation. I just want to show you real quick. Okay, so if you start doing PBL in your classrooms, the 10 to 15 hours of contact hours are fine. Your whole day doesn't have to be a PBL model, okay? Start off with 10 to 15 hours. The breadth shouldn't be completely interdisciplinary, that's ambitious. You can start with one subject and a few standards. You don't have to do completely interdisciplinary. Take baby steps. Technology, use basic technology. Get them to make PowerPoint presentations, prezzies. You don't have to go into coding. You don't have to step that far ahead. Take again baby steps towards those things. Second, start with the community. Start with the classroom, just something you can do, a real life problem within the classroom, and then take it to the community and the world outside. Start off with one teacher, yourselves, and then include several teachers outside, community and experts. Audience, just make it your classroom first as a test role, and then bring in experts, the World Wide Web, and projects that are happening all over the world. Lastly, student autonomy. Manage it lightly, but make it teacher defined, because in the first year you will have to practice yourselves. So don't give all the voice and choice to the children, and eventually it will be co-defined and managed with your students. You will sit with them and you will make a timeline and a calendar. So again, don't be hard on yourselves. Don't think that this is something that tomorrow you're going to go out of here and you suddenly need to do all these things. Take baby steps towards doing those things. Okay, it's very important. Kaval, what do you think?
Well, I agree with Ms. Aisha because PBL, project-based learning, has different models. And there is one called problem-based learning, which is slightly more subject-based. And that is what the model which works better with middle years and OA levels, because that is specific to a subject, and a lot of math and science and social studies core standards are covered through problem-based learning. So when you're doing your research online, do research on problem-based learning as well, and you'll be able to get a few answers from there.
And as teachers, these are some of the words that you need to start adding to your own vernacular. Instead of writing questions and assessments based on descriptions, start to apply, classify, illustrate, examine, start analyzing, identify, categorize, investigate, start evaluating, start creating. Okay, instead of starting your questions with them, can you start imagine a world, design something, construct something. So change your vernacular to this kind of stuff. Don't use stuff, not a good word. But here I'm just going to give you, this is the model that I was talking to you about. We have 2 minutes, so unless there are any questions, we are all done. There's another question? As an early years teacher, I struggle to practice Reggio Emilia concept, but parents demand copy work and homework help. Parent education. You've got to educate parents. And the way you're going to educate parents is by their children going home and talking to them about what they have learned. So you have to make your children into communicators. This is a very common problem, homework and copy work. But you know, there is a place for copy work. It has to be done. Nobody is saying that when you do PBL, you throw out and burn your books. You don't do that. You do need copy work. You do need work in them, and you do need to give homework as well. These are misconceptions out there that PBL is some magical utopian world where none of these things exist. They do. So sorry teachers, but you still have to do copy checking. You still have to do feedback. There's no getting away with that. Kaval, since you like Regio a lot, do you want to talk about that?
Well, Regio is more about learning, experiential learning. Again, Ms. Aisha talked about when you experience something rather than learning it by heart. When you go through that experience, you'll remember it better. Regio is more on that, but that does not mean that they don't follow the curriculum standard. When you have to teach a child how to write S or A, they will have to write it in a notebook. They will have to learn how to write in 4 lines because they will be applying that knowledge in real life. Yes, in some cases, because we have a question here, how project-based learning helps students overcome their learning difficulties. Now, with some students in the early years, then motor skills are not developed properly. So then what we do with them, like you said, they work on their own pace. In a lot of these cases, we switch them onto the computer and then they start typing. So they are learning how to write words, they are learning their spellings. You just change the way how to deal with that problem based on their individual needs. So a lot of differentiation needs to happen in the class also.
Yes, that's another word, differentiation, that you guys need to. It's a Herculean task. It's not easy, and again, but it needs to be done. Amar, I'll answer your question after the session. Okay. He's asking me about how to convince parents on certain methodologies. Any questions? Yes, after question.
You know, when you say that if a child struggles with motor skills in early learning, like he cannot write S, so he cannot write A, B, whatever letter, for instance, you say switch to the computer where he's typing, then his motor skills will really not develop well if you don't give him that pencil wheel.
That will help that will work simultaneously, but in terms of learning the S vocabulary or the word bank, you can use a different method, and side by side you can work on the motor skills. That way you'll be saving a lot of the time in the class because you're still bound by the timetable and the curriculum. You have to reach the curriculum targets. So these are just a few strategies that you modify in the class, and then you can use those extra 5-10 minutes to help strengthen the motor skills.
वो तो करना ही है ना. He has to write at some point, but what we're saying is don't, get him on with his learning as well.
Actually, I just want to add on this because if the child has no motor skill, the thing is that if he doesn't have, you have to use your different strategies there. Yeah. You can give them the newspaper and give him the pencil and just scribble the thing.
There are plenty of strategies that can be
It depends on the
that.
child. It depends the interest of the. You have to keep in mind the interest of the child.
That's right.
Child. So this will help out. And what she said about that, we have to give them the opportunity to go on the over there and to type the letter. It is actually very helpful because they will get interest on that. Even you can give them the tab. They can do the work on that because they can trace on the tab. So there are different games and different strategies that you can use for the child.
Absolutely. All right. Are we done with questions? There's one audience member.
He wants to make a comment.
Oh, you want to make a comment? Okay. Okay. We have a minute left.
Yes, it's like about 45 seconds. I just had an exposure in University of West of Scotland, and now I just compare that exposure towards like your BBL. It's to make it a little.
Our PBL, sabka PBL.
Our BBL actually. So it's like, when you feed a man with a fish, you feed him for 1 day.
Right.
But if you teach him how to fish, you feed him for lifetime.
Absolutely.
And thank you very much for your
Thank you very much. That's very insightful. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, everyone. Like I said again, I'm sorry I couldn't be Zach Chase, but I hope you enjoyed the session. You learned something, and if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you. Thank you very much.